It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a
You
minute out
too.
today.
No, my pleasure.
So let's begin our journey into your work by asking you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed so many things for everybody. How did you get through the pandemic and how has it radiated into your world in 2025?
I mean, my life got flipped upside down actually prior to the pandemic. So it was weird. It was like kind of lucky, but also, I was already up in the air when the pandemic hit because I had been working in Asia for just under a decade. And basically I was about 39 at that time. And I had a pretty like I was quite proud of myself, the kind of corporate career I'd built. My background's as an organizational psychologist and corporate strategist, and I was working for some big tech companies in Asia with regional roles and sort of like, digital transformation, M&A, corporate strategy. But basically I burned out. I burned out really, really, really hard. And it was, it's probably a testament to just like how strong and stubborn I am that I didn't burn out sooner. I think like in hindsight, I'm surprised like I had that many years in me. But and it was a shame. I had a great job with Adobe and so I decided to move back to the States. I needed time and I needed a breather. And so I had basically left Singapore, where I had been living for about 6, 7 years, and moved back to the States. Then during the pandemic, I bounced around as many people do. I also very impulsively decided to move to LA to do a startup, which was not, some of my best decision making skills. And and then I came back to South Florida about 2 years ago. And, in that time in LA, I was trying to do a startup that didn't work out. I really underestimated the reverse culture shock of coming back to America. I also didn't really have much of a, network except for old people I knew in America. So it was like, had I landed anywhere, it would have been difficult. But at least, South Florida, I have somewhat of a base, whereas LA was a completely different beast. It might as well have been a different country. And then during that time, my ex-husband passed away. So everything happened. And so yeah, what didn't happen? I
Yeah.
also dated an Italian for a year. Like, I spent a bunch of time in Italy. Like, what didn't happen?
Wow. So let's get into right now what you're doing. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day, and the kid in the back of the room wants to know what you're doing for a living. How do you answer him?
Yeah, but this is I am now a content creator, and that is not what I want to tell 12-year-olds to go do. They already want to do that. But
Right.
so I started a YouTube channel late last year called Pieces of Miss Minnie. And my name Padmini means the lotus flower, or she who sits or stands on the lotus, which is another name for the goddess Lakshmi. Um, and that's why it's called Pieces of Miss Minnie, because I'm essentially sharing the lessons of my life one memory at a time. And that is, living in, so many different countries. I'm of East African Indian descent, fourth generation out of India since the 1800s. I bounced around. I went to like 7 schools or something before I got to college. Like I have 4 degrees. I've lived in Asia for a long time, came back, you know, married, divorced, embarrassing moments, new lessons, a bunch of ex-boyfriends who I get to make fun of, but I don't share anyone's name, so it's fine. Yeah, and so it was just a way for me to tell all the stories I'd accumulated because I just didn't know where to put them.
Yeah.
My life had just been so wild, and I was like, there's got to be a reason. Like, this can't be accidental or random. Like that, and and a lot of people who did know, parts or all of that story, everybody had been saying for years I needed to write, and it just doesn't really come as naturally to me as speaking does. And I have kind of like I am interested in technology. I like to see how technology moves societies and how it warps and changes. I think it has arguably been a pretty unhealthy relationship by and large in what it's done at a macro level, but still there is so much creativity in content, and I didn't, and it was weird for me going into this because I wasn't trying to be like a fashion influencer or something. I wasn't doing like makeup stuff. Like, I'd be happy to show people I love clothes, but like, it wasn't that. And it was so personal, yet the most public modality that, you put something there. And yeah, it depends on how many people view it, but to a certain extent, just like in its essence, it is now documented. It is part of like a permanent digital footprint of, but like that's also so beautiful as well that you can like put that out there and maybe somebody sees it this week and maybe someone doesn't see it for another decade. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that can live there.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. When you were 12 years old, what was your dream job? What did you want to grow up and become?
I was not one of those kids. I went through different phases. Like when I was younger, I was like really into whales, like the mammals. Like I was really into whales and I like would save up my money to like send it to whale charities and adopt a whale and like I was fascinated. So like there was a time where I wanted to be a marine biologist for sure, just to study whales. And like frankly, I would still choose that.
Yeah.
Like that would like I would still do that. I just
Yeah.
don't have the education or skill set. But like if I could just take off a couple years and go study whales, I would.
Yeah.
No one would see me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
but then when I was about 12, I think like my personality started to show up. It was very awkward. I never fit in anywhere. I wasn't white. We're fourth generation East African Indians. I was born in London. We moved to the States in the late 80s. My father's family's from Kenya. My mother's from Uganda. Like even by, the Indian standards in America, those are usually first and second generations from Indians from India. And it was like, we lived all over the place, went to so many different types of schools. So it was like I was already a, an outsider, but yet it was sort of like it was like I was friends with everybody, but still kind of like a popular loner.
Yeah.
Um, but, I think that's where like, I don't know, it moved so quickly. I don't know if I had maybe I thought I wanted to work in fashion. Maybe, I thought I wanted to become a psychologist. Like, I wanted to work in like news media. Like, I didn't really have like a clear idea of what I wanted to do. I think ironically, hilariously, whatever that thing is that I still can't name, I am probably closer to it now than I've ever been.
Gotcha. So what were the foundational seeds do you think were planted into you to be, to be accomplished, to be a go-getter for this career path that you've been on? How did these seeds get sown?
I think there were two major folds. Like one, just when you're an immigrant, period.
Yeah.
And you come to a country with nothing. And my mom was a refugee when Idi Amin, led his coup in Uganda and all the Indians and Asians were exiled. So she was a refugee at 16. My father's family left East Africa in the 60s as well due to a lot of instability. Both of them and the families, like everyone started with zero, like less than zero. So it was sort of like, and and then moving to the States was, liberating in some respects, especially in the 80s. It was like, we moved to Phoenix. It was, it was a happier, certainly warmer place and time and happier than London for sure. But you're starting from zero. There's no legacy. There's no our family is from here. My mother grew up here. Like my family's been on four continents in three generations. Like that is so you have to kind of, I guess, like that is inherent, and that you understand that you have to make it work. And then the second part of it that I think, like, because we're East Indian and like education is so important, it was like I nobody ever talked about me getting married. Nobody ever made a big deal about my looks. Like no, like I mean, maybe they could have been nicer. I probably would have had higher self-esteem, but like nobody was mean. But it was like our education was just like the utmost importance, and for actually most of our life. with the exception of the years when we were in Kansas City, almost like, you know, even though we didn't have the money, like we went to private schools, like, whether it was my parents were paying scholarship, financial aid, whatever it took. So like we had uh a pretty, even though we moved around a lot and that was really tough, like we also went to really good schools. And then that was the one thing sort of as a family, like you understood, like my parents, were pretty clear that it was their responsibility to educate their children. But yeah, I think the two combined, like the kind of like immigrant to refugee, kind of story of my family, and then also just like being of East Indian descent. I think some of that is just like built into the culture.
Yeah. So who's been a hero? Who's been an inspirational force for you to find your voice and to find who you are?
Oh, my grandmother has been pretty, I mean, she passed away like a decade ago, but my grandmother was a force of nature.
Yeah.
She is still a force of nature. I know, like I'm still like scared of her. Like, but she was the only one in my family who actually was born in India. And her father was a freedom fighter, as was a lot of her family. He had been a close colleague and, you know, um, a friend with Gandhi actually, and she had, but during then when the British were there, they didn't let girls get an education past the age of 12. Basically, the British had outlawed women's education, and her father fought to put her in like a boys' school. She was just like she could pick up a language with the drop of the hat. She, had 7 children, but was still like trading, like she could still do FX trading and like and she had a lot of style. She was still like very glamorous and really took care of herself and really celebrated beauty, and she was really into fashion, as were all my other aunts. And but she was a lion. She was like nobody crossed her. Nobody would have, like, spiritually that would be a bad idea, but also just like how much she loved, like I think her grandchildren even more than her children.
Yeah.
Like the she was hilarious, like, and she was fearless. I remember one time I was with my brother and my cousins in Trafalgar Square one summer, and there were a bunch of these sort of like punk rockers, with like mohawks and piercings and dyed and shaved heads and stuff. And my grandmother wanted us to take a photo with them, and they were hanging out. They looked pretty cool. And so she goes over to them, and she was like, I'd like to take a picture with my grandchildren and you guys." And the woman was like, 5 pounds, 5 quid. And my grandmother was like two. And she was like, fine.
That's awesome. That's great.
Like white sari. Like she wasn't even like 5 foot tall.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, do you have the picture?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
That'd be
Maybe.
interesting to look back on. So as a content creator, if you could meet a content creator that exists in the world that you admire, hang out and see how they do what they do, is there one out there that you would like to meet?
Oh my God. Um, Shoot, this is a big question. I was not prepared for this.
Well,
Um,
we can move into another question.
yeah, I mean, the first person that comes to mind is Liza Koshy. I
Okay.
think she was like very, very interesting to watch. I'm older. I'm 45, so it's like there are, probably hundreds and thousands of content creators I
Yeah,
should know and I don't know. I've
me
had like
too.
very peculiar taste.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and then I actually I think what is my content digestion is not so much of famous creators.
yeah,
It's actually been primarily a smaller, quirkier, but very, very interesting, intelligent people. Like I actually especially on TikTok, I let it roll random. And I just like see, and obviously you're interacting with the algorithm, but like I think there's brilliance in every corner. I don't actually judge brilliance or talent based on the followers.
yeah,
It's just there are, so many other variables that go into that. But
yeah,
like I am just like very impressed with
yeah,
like the talent of people, like, I if country, I know like there are a lot of content creators around the world, but I think like the American ones, just like the casual ones and the smaller ones are fascinating. I think like that is actually like some of the best, even just like humor and philosophy I've
Oh
ever
yeah.
seen.
Yeah, I agree. So let me ask you this. What is the motivator for you every day to wake up to do the work that you do, to take care of your soul, to do the job that you have, and to create at the highest level? What is that for you every day?
I mean, I like it takes a lot for me to get out of bed. I love sleeping. That is my favorite hobby ever. Like
Yeah,
if I were allowed to sleep the whole day, I would.
yeah,
But I've been chipping away at it. And I've like incrementally been changing with it. And so it's like I'm too far in now. Like now I got to see it through. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've come too far.
yeah,
And also it's like there is actually nothing else I would rather do. I'm interested to see where this takes me and where this goes. I'm interested to see the decisions I even make, which are sometimes unbeknownst to me until they happen. But I I'm actually like for once, I am actually having fun. So then it doesn't, even though it's a bit scary, even though it's a bit tedious at times, even though like I'm behind on so much stuff and, need to get more organized, it's like actually, but like it's an incremental like learning curve that I'm on as well. And it's like I've been able to see progress. It's like I think it's very unsatisfying in a lot of jobs actually when you can't actually see the progress or like you have defining like projects that like you really got to like lead or if you're just sort of a cog in the wheel or there's so many jobs that are just like kind of in between jobs of like pushing not pushing papers but kind of like the technological like administrative equivalent and I think sometimes those can be like really really deeply unsatisfying and then what really sucks is that like you're judged based on like what have you delivered but you're not in a job where you're really capable of delivering much so you're coming up with like these weird standards and like evaluations that like really are just like a movement job you're really just like taking some piece of like information or product or service or whatever and adding whatever you do to it and then you're pushing it along somewhere else so it's like I think there's just a lot of friction in that but like to do something where I can like see the videos and even just like for myself this is the first thing I've done for myself by myself that I'm actually like I'm really proud of it. So to a certain extent, like I don't care what anyone else thinks. It's just like I'm actually proud of myself, and that's been cool.
yeah. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you, ready to go out into the world, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this
Oh.
life you've led, the wisdom you've gained, what advice would you give that young version of you?
Um, I probably a few pieces. One, it would be, I was so insecure about how I looked and the thing is I was beautiful and I was thin and there was so much energy and agony that like got lost there that wasn't necessary and really like beating myself up a lot and it was like I was I was cute at 18. I was adorable. I was hilarious. Um Also like don't lower your standards. Like I didn't understand my power. I didn't understand that I was the prize that things were going to be okay, but I had come out of like a lot of our childhood had been very unstable, particularly with all the moves. So just to like teach her how to take care of herself.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like I things would have been very different if I had mastered that earlier.
So of everything that you've done, accomplished, and evolved to at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think at a probably twofold, like at a more like runs you can visibly see on the board. I would say, my education and my experience. Like I have 4 degrees and, I have startup and corporate experience and I got to work in Asia for 9 years and I saw a lot of the world. It was like I am proud of that. Like that was hard work. Like none of that was easy. That was exhausting from start to finish.
Yeah.
And it, the like I grinded for like 2 decades. I grind. And so like I'm proud of that. At an internal level, I am proud of like who I've evolved into, that I finally like found myself, and that I don't feel so like disassociated and detached and just sort of like I don't think I totally live in the 3D anyway. Like I'm kind of like split on multiple dimensions at any given moment, but um I was just so like absent. And now I actually can start to see clearly, and it's like I am proud. I did not see this coming. I did not know what was coming. I was just surviving for so many years, like most of my life really. I had never really been in the driver's seat. I was just like this chronic overachiever. But I'm actually in the driver's seat, and it's just like I have a different appreciation for like time, for my body. I'm making really cool new friendships. I've got, I appreciate the old ones as well. Like I am, if we all die of natural causes, we're living into our 80s, 90s, which means at 45, I am kind of just halfway through.
Yeah.
So to sort of like awaken as I did, which happened over, a number of years, starting, when I was 39 up until recently. But that I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to happen.
So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, all of your fans, everyone that gets into your content, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I think I am eccentric. I think the things that it depends on how well they know me. I think the people who know me well know that I have a big heart, that, I will fight dragons for the people I love. I think the people who don't know me well, who knows what they think? Like this has been the story of my life. Is basically people's perceptions of me. I didn't need to do this channel to experience that. I've been experiencing that since day one.
Yeah.
Um, I think I hope they understand that like a lot of things can coexist. Like you can be intelligent and you can be funny and you can have a big heart and you can be cutting. And it's sort of like the message that they take from me has everything to do with them. Actually, at a certain point, once it comes out of my mouth and leaves the screen, or, it's theirs. But I hope they understand that, like, I mean, no one, no harm. I want humanity to win. I want animals to win. I want the environment to win. I want this planet to win. I don't know if we're going to right now, but like, I think the size of my heart has almost isolated me,
Yeah.
and I've struggled with that.
So if anyone wants to go out to your YouTube channel, they have any questions, anything else that's going on in your world, where's the best place for them to go?
YouTube and Instagram, and then I have a link tree there, so there's an email you can contact me on as well. I think it's yeah, yeah. But there are ways. I'm still like very much hands on. So I will, if you would like to talk to me, there are plenty of ways right there.
Yeah,
and then I'm working on other projects, and then you'll see me popping up here and there.
Okay. Yeah, I will put all those links in the show notes. This has been wonderful. So great to meet you. Thank you for your story. Continued success. Good luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Looking to get new clients to your business through cold calling or email marketing? At Agency Y, they envision a world in which small and big companies have equal chances to win new customers in the market. Their purpose is to bring parity and reduce the gap between large and small firms with the help of their cold calling and cold email marketing services. Use the code Joe Dimino 10 at www.agencyyyy.org/coldcallingjoe.php or www.agencyyy.org/email emailmarketingjoe.php to get 10% off your first order. This is Joe Dimino of Neon Jazz and Famous Interviews, and I stand behind Agency Y to meet your business dreams.